Sarvesh. So first of all, good afternoon to all. So who are viewing right now? So welcome to OSCONF Jaipur, the pink city, basically we call it, right?
Yeah.
So good to catch up with all these beautiful folks right now. And yeah, so I also belong to Rajasthan, so I'm very excited to be part of this event right now. Okay, hi. So myself, Vinay. Uh, so I have around a 13 plus year of industry experience. Yeah, so I started my career with little background with VMware. I worked for a good time there. I've learned lots of things from there. Then I moved to Pune for a short time. Then I switched to Oracle, and then now I'm working with the Dell. So I'm currently working as a DevOps engineer, and so the topic today we are going to talk about is DevOps, right? The reason to come up with this topic. So this year we are hit by a very bad pandemic, right? COVID-19, and so during this time we have seen lots of up and down during the software industry. Many of us got impacted, and there are lots of college graduates who are coming out of college and a little bit struggle for the job. And I have seen around lots of queries around on my like LinkedIn chat or other channels. There people are asking how they can ramp up in DevOps. Okay, even Ajit is there today with me and Apurva, and we have a beautiful team from Jaipur also. What we thought of, let's share our experience, industry experience on DevOps. Okay, how we have ramp up, or how we have skilled ourselves, so that we can help anyone whom he or she can refer this. Okay, so we have come up with few set of questions which we picked up from the users over our channel. Okay, and so we thought of, let's discuss this, and feel free to drop questions over the YouTube live chat. If time permits, definitely we'll pick some from there. Okay, and I want to be that interactive, right? So that this is what this panel discussion all about. Okay, so with me, Ajit. I know very much everyone aware about Ajit. He's the one who started this OSCONF plus this Collabnix beautiful channel, and he also has, I think, 13 plus industry year experience, and he has a vast knowledge on DevOps. Okay, to other areas about lots of tools and all about DevOps. And other than that, we have Apurva. He also has an in-depth knowledge on DevOps. He's starting from his career. He's working on that field. Okay, so welcome to panel discussion, Ajit and Apurva. Okay, so I'll just like what we are going to do, Ajit and Apurva. I'll ask a few of the set of questions with you folks. Feel free to answer with your experience and what you make out, like how it is going to help the audience, everyone who may view this like video later on, and how they can leverage our community, basically Slack community, or say we have a Collabnix space. So how we can help them, or how they can come and contribute to us, so that they can also learn in their free time. So very first thing, Ajit, let me ask you very basic question, right? So what everyone's want to know, maybe this term is very not that new. So what exactly that DevOps engineer do? Okay, so this is very basic question when you face when someone asks you, right, what exactly you do, or what is the DevOps engineer profile, basically, right? And as far as I know, it's a very vast. Okay, so there is no single line we can answer it. But I would like to hear from you, Ajit. So let me know what your view on that.
Yeah, thanks, Vinay. Can you hear me?
Yes, Ajit, we can very well hear you.
Okay. So thanks, Vinay, for having me for this panel discussion. Definitely, this is one of the discussion I was looking out for, because I too received a lot of queries. And, I think this will be a platform which can help us based on what we have learned in the past. So thanks for having me here. Okay, so to answer your first question, right? What does DevOps engineers do? So the first thing we need to really understand is when we talk about DevOps, it is not just a developer doing the operation work or operation doing the developer's work, right? It is more of the collaboration. It is more of a culture, right? And the reason why we are bringing that kind of a culture is what we are targeting today is more of how we can go ahead with a faster time to market, right? And when we say faster time to market, we are considering the security, we are considering the quality of the product. So as a DevOps engineer, since it is more of a collaboration, it is more of a culture, they have day-to-day activities, and these day-to-day activities could be anything from a project management, uh, from designing the IT infrastructure, or it could be a performance testing, or it could be an optimizing the release cycle. So I do see that if you look at the developers, right, usually they spend more and more time on building their code and then ensuring that it get committed to GitHub or any of the version control system. And then the operations guys, what they do is they take that particular code and try to go ahead and deploy it. Now, before DevOps, it was very difficult, right? Because teams were working in silos. But now, since with the collaboration, the responsibility has increased in such a way that now you are thinking of a bigger picture. There is no cookbook, or there is no a kind of a technical guide for a DevOps engineer. All he has to do is he has to collaborate with all the stakeholders. Say, if you are in a kind of a business where you are delivering a kind of telecommunication business, right? Now, with a telecommunication business, if you are a developer or a C developer or a Java developer, you have to go ahead and build the code. But at the same time, you need to know the bigger picture. When it goes to the customer, you have to get the feedback out of the customer. You have to do the performance testing. You have to do the monitoring. The moment you see a DevOps or tech stack of any company, and what are the tools and techniques you see on the tech stack, you have to take care of all of these things end to end. If you will look at the DevOps engineers, like sometimes when you work as a DevOps engineer, then you become a DevOps manager. So which means that a DevOps engineer has to also consider it as a management. He has to go ahead and take a lead in managing when, where, how, who is taking care of this, how it is being delivered to the customer, whether customer has tested this particular product or not. He should be aware of all those deadlines. He should be in regular contact with the customer. Other than that, if you talk about the developers, when developers need some kind of an IT infrastructure, you have to ensure that you have to give that infrastructure to them. If an automation test engineer is taking more and more time in running his test script, you have to bring more modern DevOps tools. You have to recommend that. So as a DevOps engineer, you need to identify how you can improve, okay, improve this to encourage the collaboration in between them. Okay. And since you are responsible for end-to-end solution, I think automation, optimizing the release cycle, one of the new things which is coming up is a DevSecOps, because as a DevOps, you always look out for faster time to market, but you leave few of the security stuffs behind, right? So we have a DevSecOps which has been introduced, which means DevOps plus security. So as a DevOps engineer, you have to take care of the DevSecOps roles too. So and the major part of tech stack goes to monitoring and logging. I think you should be aware of such kind of a tools like Prometheus and Grafana, and you need to know a lot number of tools. Look at the resume of DevOps, right? You see like 3 to 4 pages filled up with number of tools, and that is required. You need to know each and every tools which falls under the tech stack. So I think DevOps, it has a huge responsibility in building the business, in basically for the faster time to market, in building the skills, to go ahead and run those businesses.
Yeah, I think that's right on the lines. What you said is perfectly correct. This is what I said is this is like it's a it's a big like a big ocean, like what you said, DevOps, right? It's not a single job. When you said about developer, developer is one who develops the code, right? So he can be good in one area, say Java or whatever he prefer. And when you talk about testing, QA, he can do. But DevOps is like a collaboration of both. Am I right? So he has to be good in all. Okay. And practically it's not true, but yeah, he has to be aware of these things he has to build the gap, okay, between the developer and operation, basically when you call up. So he has to be aware of the latest stack, what is going in the industry, and what he has to be, so that he can help bridge the gap between the two basically teams. Okay. So my next question is around so why is DevOps so important in present times? Okay. So let me answer that. Maybe I'll just give a brief. So it's very so a few years back, maybe in 13 or 2013 14, I was working in one of the company, right? And all of a sudden this DevOps field emerged like anything, and everyone was talking about this DevOps. Okay. And before that it was not. Before that it was like a model SDLC. Okay. So there is a developer, there is a QA, and once developer writes a code, they check in, they create a build, and then it's a QA team. Now they're going to test it, and then they're going to file a bug. So this is how the process goes on, right? And then the industry have seen lots of changes. You might have, like in 2013, right? The Docker came in the picture. Then lots of other tools came, and as that is the time that DevOps feel also this term has evolved. Okay, so what basically why is so important? So it is important in the sense because whatever DevOps engineer do, right? He or she build a quality deliverable. Okay, that is the more important. How he builds that. So as I said, previous to DevOps, there is a QA plus there is a dev, right? There is a cycle on that. But what DevOps engineer do that they have this DevOps technology introduced lots of tools. Basically, we call as there is a concept of we call as CI/CD, like continuous integration, continuous delivery or deployment. That is very most important thing, and that helps the process to speed up. And that's really a one major what we call as it's a fully automated. We can do that. So as soon as the DevOps engineer design that pipeline, that is the responsibility of DevOps engineer. Okay, so he or she, like the engineer person, has to be knowledge or has to be good in that to design the pipeline. There are lots of tools. We can name one: Jenkins, Hudson. These are the that most famous. Team City. There are lots of tools which we use right now. Okay, so he or she, like DevOps engineer, design that pipeline. What it do is that in that they take the code as soon as the developer check in, and then it will kick off the build. And then what it do is that it will complete the cycle within some time, and if there is any bug, it will report it back. So what it has done, it has improved the quality, right? It is not like the developer has checked in and then the QA will take it build from there and will do the testing and come back, right? It will immediately do the within some time, and then there is a continuous integration, it call as. So that is why these role, basically DevOps engineer role, right, that possess a very important role. Now the second part, you might have seen now the everything that every now like most of the industry has moved from on to off prem, basically when you call as towards the cloud. And there what the there is the role of DevOps engineer comes also play, right? So he or she like has to be aware of this cloud technology so that it can be taken care of the infrastructure part also. Okay, so that is also a very important part in the DevOps world. Okay, so and then when you talk about cloud, right, then there comes we are now today interacting with lots of Kubernetes, right? That is Docker management and Docker. These all tools or these all terms comes in the picture in the DevOps, right? So that is why this DevOps field makes so important right now. When you talk about any good organization or any organization which is they have highly in demand of DevOps field right now. And so when you talk about any good platform like media platform, Netflix, any Amazon or all these things, they all are on right now cloud, and for that they have a backend DevOps team, right? So that is the reason this DevOps field is so demand, and that is the highly like I would say like highly skilled right now. You have to be like, because you have to be smart in each and every corner of that. Okay, so that is the reason. Basically, if I see the industry pattern or if I fed the data from I've seen from internet, so what it says that what DevOps engineer do or DevOps quality this field, it it highly it's it makes the life cycle easy for the product delivery. That's right. And then it is like increase the collaboration between developer and a QA. I will say operation, basically, because developer don't have to worry about like deploying that, and QA doesn't, our operation team has done don't worry about that, right? That is taken care by the DevOps person who is going to design that for them a pipeline or say a proper infrastructure. Okay, and so that is in nutshell, I would say that is why this DevOps field is so important right now. I hope Ajit, do you want to add anything, or Apurva?
Yeah, true, Vinay and Ajit. I would like to add some more point. Like I could say, there are some myth like in the DevOps field that if I want to go for the DevOps jobs, or if I want to deep dive, or if I want to get the job for the DevOps, I know bunch of tools. It is not the it is not the correct way to understand the DevOps. Like I have hundreds of tools of knowledge, but I am not using those tools. There is of no use that I know the hundreds of tools and I am not using that things. So here, like if I talk about like DevOps more the things, so once the developer done with the code, the next thing, like when we are running the codes into the production, that will be totally take care of the DevOps, or I could say the SREs. So what I could say, like DevOps is more likely the bridging the gap between ops and dev, and how we can accelerate this process. Like if you already talked about like CI/CD, then deployment and staging, then prod, as Ajit said, like monitoring stuffs and all those stuff, all those things. So these are like more important things. Whether you are using Jenkins, or whether you are using like Travis CI for CI, whether you are using like stuff like Kubernetes for the deployment, as application deployment, or you are using like EC2 instances. That doesn't matter at all for the DevOps guys. What DevOps will do, how we can accelerate this process, and how it is more compatible, and how we can up and running the production server, like we can give the more uptime. So if I talk more about like uptime in the sense like in a uptime like, so it will be like if I talk about like Docker or Kubernetes, it is like more modular, or it is like a platformless type of stuff, where I can spin up this application very easily on any cloud. It's not like if I talk about like AWS, then I am running the Lambdas. Same kind of stuff, if I go to the GCP, I will run the application on Cloud Run. It is not the case. If I have built any application for the with the image, that image I can run on any platform. Like if I can run it on DC data centers on standalone server, I can run those application on cloud too, or any cloud I can run those applications. These are like beauty of the DevOps, where we can migration of the application from monolithic to microservice. Once again, I will go back to the monolithic type of services. If I do not really want to migrate my monolithic application to the containerized one, and I do not have like problem with the current scenario, then definitely nobody has to try to do this application into the containerized one. So if I talk about like once application is moved to the staging to the production, so there are like I am from the like there with some of the SRE aspects. Like I cannot say I have implemented all the aspects of the SRE, but what site reliability does, the site reliability terms are in like first of all like introduced into the Google. So what site reliability engineers do, it will start more focusing on SLI, SLO, and SLAs. So if I talk about like SLOs, so SLOs work with your error budget. So if I am saying that my application uptime is 99.9% up, that means like 99.9 by month. If I'm calculating, then I have like 0.1% downtime per month in my hand. So if I have calculated 0.001 into 30 days by month into 24 hours by the day into 60 minutes, so it comes to nearly around 43.2 minutes per month. So you can consider like I have like 40 to 45 minutes of downtime per month in my hand, and I will make sure that my production application is up and running in the less than this time. So here how you can calculate the error budget kind of stuff along with the SLOs.
Yeah, thanks, Apurva. I think, yeah, so that is what all about. Like, so there are lots of terms here. There are lots of jargons which we are using right now. Maybe those who are new to that, they may be thinking like, what all this? So the next question comes around here is that, so how to possess how to become a DevOps engineer, or what all skills we need to have to become a DevOps engineer, or when we are looking for a job change as a experience also, or as a fresher, whatever, say when you anyone who comes out as a graduate, what all things I need to learn. Okay, so there are lots of these questions which comes on my page, or maybe I've seen Ajit, or lots of things we are answering on our channel also. So I'll take this question as a I'll try to answer from my end what I have done from last few years, or say recently also. I'm trying to leverage whatever I can learn. So this is like a continuous learning, first of all. Okay, I would I will bet you on that no one in industry who call himself or herself as a like a pro in a DevOps engineer. Okay, who has full hands-on on each and every part. Okay, so now to narrate this, what exactly we possess as a DevOps engineer, I'll break down in like 4 to 5 quadrants what I try to learn. Okay, so very first thing when you talk about DevOps engineer, like it's like a developer plus operation role, right? So you need to start with like from the developer point. As soon as there is a developer who writes the code. Okay, so you think about there is a product or there is an application. Okay, there is a dev team. They are going to write a code now once they have written a code, so very first thing DevOps person has to do is that they will have some central repo. Okay, so when you talk about, I'll give you few central repo, like Git is very famous for that, right? So very first thing, they will check in a code from there. Now the DevOps engineer role is to how to design now how to design from there, basically, right? So there comes the picture here, like DevOps engineer has to be aware of that Git. Very first thing I would say, like basic knowledge has to be around from the any source control tool, basically we call it, right? So that is they have to be aware, they have to take a basic knowledge of that. Okay, now after that, when you talk about, when I said that this person has to be aware of that, basically continuous integration, continuous delivery or deployment model. Okay, so that is the major role, I would say that. So that is the good skill the DevOps engineer should have, basically, I would say, right? Without that, it sounds as incomplete, because that is the first stage which you are building a gap between a developer and a operation team. So I would say second, go for that, basically get knowledge around these tools, and these are not uh, so tedious or something. There are lots of good documents or lots of tutorials, you'll find it out, which I also learned from YouTube, or we have lots of, even Ajit has written few beautiful blogs where I have used those blogs how to create a Jenkins pipeline, or say Jenkins server using a Docker, right? It barely take less than 10 minutes and your Jenkins is up and running. And I would say that that is the best practice you can do it. Just deploy as a container as a Jenkins server, and you will be having your server and a client and play around it. Okay, and if you want, we have a reference or that page, so you go and search to create a Jenkins as a container and do play around. And that is the first thing which I have done, because in an industry, I would say as a personal experience, you don't get everything hands-on. Okay, because it's a team effort, right? So you'll be, maybe I'd say like I'll be working on cloud platform, so I don't have access to my, maybe say Jenkins, so that I have not done that. But when you want to move ahead in your career, right, you want to say anything, but they expect you to be pro in everything. At least you should know. Okay, so when you want to build a career from the scratch, or say in the pro as experience, what I'm saying is that you need to learn all these things. Okay, so even I have learned, I have deployed my as a container, and then I have created few pipelines. Okay, and as I'm repeating again, there are lots of good documents, so do use this platform, like say YouTube. Then we have lots of courses on other platform. Do search and learn about this tool, basically CI/CD, and pick anyone. Say most famous right now is Jenkins, and then we have Bamboo now coming, TeamCity. Okay, so that is the first. And then now the second block, which I would say that now most of the industry are moving from off like on-prem, right? When you say on-prem, like the infrastructure which resides in your in your office, basically. So it is like, I would say decade back, that industry pattern was like you have a private lab and you have a server and everything is deployed there. Okay, so when 2000, around 2006, when I started my career, VMware was like, it's a hot cake, right? So there, because you have virtualization everywhere, and then you can, using single server, you can have n number of VMs, right? And then few years back, I would say down the line again, a decade back, then cloud terminology comes in the picture. Now, when you talk about cloud, that is the second quadrant, right? So now industry is taking care of like cloud. So the person who wants to be build your career in that, they have to be aware of one of the cloud technology. Pick any cloud. There is nowhere, because all this stack are same. When you talk about, there are three layer: IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS. Okay, so these three layer defines your whole architecture. When you are aware of these three layers, doesn't matter whether you work on GCP, AWS, Azure, they all differ in little bit on their services. But if you know any one of that, I'll bet you can make out the other cloud platform very easily. So pick any one cloud platform, try to learn. There are n number of sources now. In 2020, I have seen like lots of, there are lots of free channels, or lots of what you call, there are bloggers who writes, and you can learn from there. And there are lots of free courses. So second thing, what you have to take care by that, learn any cloud infrastructure, cloud platform. Okay, that is also a must when you want to build your career in DevOps. Okay, and now, so when you talk about cloud, okay, so that is one. Now, so when you talk about cloud, in that, why industry is moving to the cloud? Because they are moving from monolithic to microservice. I'll just give what is monolithic is like each and every component in single. And when you talk about microservice, they are breaking down each and every component in a separate node. And when you talk about node, there comes the picture of Docker and Kubernetes. I don't want to take much time. So what I mean to say is that when you talk about these, there's third quadrant, you need to be aware of these technologies. Docker, Kubernetes is the one who is the container management. So do tick mark these three, do tick mark these two also with that. So that you will be having, like, when you say that, okay, yeah, now I have learned something which I can say that I have leveraged I can do a bit on DevOps. Now there are lots of tools. See, DevOps, there are 100 of tools, and one cannot be pro in that. Okay, so pick what you feel you can do that. Like when you talk about cloud, there is an infrastructure as a code, IAC, right? So there are lots of tools that AWS has their own Cloud Foundry. Then there is a Terraform. So when you have time, learn these tools also. Okay, but like you have to make sure, like you have to take it to day by day. Okay, but before that you need to learn about cloud. Then you can go ahead about the next step, go about like infrastructure as a code. Okay, now the third important thing which I feel is the most important, you need to be aware of about the scripting. And that is the most important when you talk about this, right? Like, so pick any one of the scripting. And I'm not saying someone has to be pro as developer, but he or she has to able to recognize what scripts are doing, or he can write, because that is the part when you're writing your pipelines, right? So that is, even I have learned over the years. And so pick, like, Python is very one famous scripting language. Then we have Bash. There are many. Go is coming up in the coming time. Golang. So you have to be, yeah. So without fail, you have to be knowledge about either Python or any scripting language. Without that, it's very tough to move ahead in career. Even after so much of experience, they ask you all these questions in your career while interviewing you. Okay, so that is one. That is the third quadrant. I'd say that pick any one language and then try to do at least basic of that, not to the core. I mean, not to the extreme, but at least core you have to be aware of that. And then last, when you talk about deployment and delivery, there are lots of tools which comes in the picture, which we have already talked about. Like, so there is continuous monitoring, then there are lots of tools there, right? So it's good to have those tools in your knowledge, but if you're not, then it's okay, because one cannot be expert in all. So there are lots of tools when you talk about Prometheus, Grafana, Nagios, and those are part of continuous delivery. I mean, it's continuous monitoring and logging, right? So this is all about, like, one has to be, these all 4 or 5 corners you have to tick mark, and then you can proceed in your DevOps career. Okay, so I think, yeah, to break it down, you have to be good in scripting, you have to take a good knowledge about cloud, then definitely about continuous integration delivery, and then play around with lots of tools around it, say Docker, Kubernetes, then lots of other tools. And then you can say that, okay, now I'm ready, and you can proceed with your DevOps career. Okay. So that is what my take is. That is what I'm doing day to day. And even I would say take one day as a learning. And so I'm really thankful to to Ajit and all this community, whatever he has done, he has written lots of good blogs and he has lots of good channels right now, like Docker Lab, Cube Labs, where if I go and it's not like everyone learns like by heart it, right? So you have to be refer every time, right? So there are lots of good memes or got good posts there, which I do play around and refresh my knowledge. So anyone want to refer can go and refer there. Okay, that is my take. I'll take maybe couple of minutes from Ajit. Do you think does it cover all, or is there anything you want to add?
Yeah, so Vinay, I think you have covered most of the stuff. So based on the experience, right, what I would like to say, so there are now three types of people, who have reached out to me saying like, okay, if you are a very fresher and if you want to really go ahead and start with DevOps, I would say the first thing which you should go ahead and refer is a GitHub. Try to look out for your favorite programming language. If you are very good, or if you have an interest in C or Java or Python, just pick up the programming language. Based on that, you build some kind of a product, and don't build it as a single army person, right? So you have to do the collaboration, you have to collaborate with others, so that you grow the sense of collaboration right from an engineering background, right? So as an engineer, I would say, because I do see one question say like, as a student or fresher, how do you recommend to start with the DevOps? And one of the thing which I can recommend is a GitHub. Get into the collaboration with other folks. Try to be in a Slack or Discord. These are the channels which will help you out. Rather than being in WhatsApp, I would suggest the Slack, because with Slack, there is a lot of integration which come into the picture. You can integrate GitHub, you can integrate every leading forum, even you can integrate the tweets, because you need to know what is happening across the globe, right? If you go ahead and follow the tweets from say any of the product, you will get to know what are the new announcement which is coming up. And as Vinay said, right, it is a continuous learning for sure. You have to go ahead, you have to learn about the new tools. Now, one of the myth which Apurva was talking about was it is not necessarily that you learn 100 of those tools. Yes, it is good to say that you learn them, but you have to analyze them in such a way that when tomorrow, when you join any company, or you are working in any of, you have say as a Linux administrator, you are working in any company for almost 10 years, and now you want to jump into the DevOps. Now you should have a skill to go ahead and recommend those tools to top management. And that is the where you can switch from your other jobs, like as a developers or as a tester, into the DevOps. One of the thing in DevOps is, 100 of tools, but you need to pick up the right one. And that requires an analysis of all those tools. Say if I am, so while working in Dell, we used to use Nagios as a tool, right? Now, Nagios tool works very great when you have a legacy application. But what about when you are in a container environment? You can't stick to Nagios for a long time. You have to have a microservices architecture, and that is where Prometheus, Grafana, Influx TV come into the picture. You have to pick up the right tool in a form of a microservices for your DevOps engineering, and that is more important rather than learning 100 of them. So I think that is something which I wanted to add.
Yeah, great. I think, yeah. So I hope this, whatever we answered, like that will create lots of air around that. What the DevOps engineer has to do that, like what skills, so they can focus on this and try to build around this area. Okay. So I have one question around like, Ajit, maybe
Uh,
let's see.
Sorry to interrupt,
Yeah.
Vinay. Like I would like to add one basic things like that you Ajit missed, like choosing of the platform. Like if you want to go with the Linux or the Windows based platform, that is the first basic things that you should know. Like if I want to go with the Windows based platform, or if I want to go with the Linux based platform, because again, if you talk about like Linux or Windows, these are two different entities. Like where if I'm using Linux, it's open source, and if I'm using like Windows, it's like legacy services. So again, if I'm going through like Linux, then I should know the shell scripting kind of stuffs, and if I'm using like Windows, I should know the PowerShell. So before moving ahead and jumping into the DevOps, you should know at least basics about and the command line and so on Windows, either Windows or either on Linux. That is a basic foundation of the DevOps, I could say, because at the end of the day, if you are building any application, you are running on any of this platform. It may be Mac, it may be Windows, or it may be Linux.
Yeah, that's true. Thanks for adding it, Apurva. So one question, Ajit, how can you differentiate Agile and DevOps, or I'll say SDLC? So do you want to take this?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so to learn DevOps, first you have to learn SDLC for sure. Because whatever you learn during engineering is software development lifecycle. You learn about the waterfall and the agile model, and now we are talking about DevOps. Okay, so let me go back to the waterfall model and then try to explain, because this is a really important question. If you look at waterfall model, it is more like a kind of a cascading kind of mode of working, right? You have a developers, you have a testers, and then uh, there are customers, right? So when a developers write a code, that has to be tested by the tester, and then it goes to the staging and then to the production, and you have a user acceptance testing in between. Now, if you look at the waterfall model, things, it takes around 6 to 12 months of time based on what kind of a product you are building. But one of the problem with waterfall model was it was taking a long time. So you spend 6 months and then the product reach out to the customer, and the customer comes back saying like, okay, you have a lot of things which are missing out. So that was consuming a lot of time, and that worked for sometimes because waterfall model has been there for around more than 40 to 50 years. Then with that, to expedite this process, we have an agile method which came into being, right? Where we call it as after every 2 weeks, you used to have some kind of a meeting where you go ahead and update to the project management what is the progress of the project. Now this was a bit of improvement, because now things are going good, because earlier we were talking about 6 months, now it is 2 weeks. There is a couple of meetings every week which happens in between, or maybe updates like every day. But the problem was, when you accelerate these kind of a stuff, sometimes when some assignment or some of the updates has to be given by the developer, usually few of the things doesn't finish in a day or a week, right? It usually take time. And one of the response from the developer was, okay, I will inform you when it is done, because when it is done, it is done. And that is the reason what happened is these sprints were not applicable in such a way that you have to think about the security point, you have to think about the quality of the product. It was just like you are chasing someone for a product, but still there was a kind of a silo in between developers and operations. So when you talk about DevOps, right, DevOps is from a day one, you are basically a developer and the operations, they are working very closely to each other, which means that you don't have to give them the updates. It is more like a DevOps team where you are taking a charge or the responsibility of what happened today and what is going to happen tomorrow. You don't need to have a frequent meeting for that, because you are always updated. And this is more like how you basically go ahead and interact it into day-to-day basis, thanks to the tools like GitHub, where you get a notification out of it, thanks to the tools like Prometheus, where you get the operation team gets all of the notification what is happening. And it has been, we, as Vinay said, right, we have a continuous integration, continuous deployment, continuous development activities which goes in parallel, right? So DevOps brings that notion of where you work very closely. Just think of it like the whole company is sitting in a small cube and they are updating each other every minute or every hour. So you don't have to go to the meeting room to go ahead and talk about what is an update, right? So DevOps is that culture. And usually the thing is, the information or data about that particular update is automatically coming to you. If we are working today as a Slack and conducting a conference, think of it as like a DevOps model where you are getting information each and every time. I don't have to call you and get an updates, right? So I think that is one of the difference which DevOps brings to the table. And it is all about how you accelerate the development cycle, how you accelerate the deployment cycle, as well as using tools like Jenkins and Bamboo, right? So those tools basically accelerate your continuous integration cycle. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very much what your answer is correct, Ajit. So I'll take one more question here, and that is very famous question. I will say, like, even I've got lots of queries around it. Like, does DevOps engineer need to have a certification? Like yeah, so I think yeah, Apurva laugh, even Ajit and me. Actually, it's like a debatable. With all due respect, it's my personal view. Whatever I'm going to say here, there is no personal, like, this is what I believe, and that is what my learning is. That so even I've got lots of careers of which certification I'll do to become to continue in this career, or say is this course is this course certification. So what my take is that I don't believe like certification is a tag which makes you are like a good DevOps engineer. So what I feel, the experience and hands-on learning will do more for you to continue in your career, or to learn more in your whatever the day-to-day job. So whatever you do in your hands-on, or say whatever you can learn from wherever is available resources, do learn that. But if you are really passionate, say you are really passionate about that terminology or that technology, say about Kubernetes, right? You want to build career in that, and you want to be learn in depth. Then I would say go for that certification, CK or CKD, whatever you feel comfortable, right? And so that makes sense. But to make like your resume fancy, or to make to show like I am 10 times certified, I don't know, like that personally I believe that's not required, because that requires lots of money, and not everyone is so much fascinated about like you have 10 certification. But when it comes to implementation, I don't know like how much they can do that. Okay, so to answer that, if you are really passionate about cloud platform and you want to do like, okay fine, I want to go in depth, go for it. Okay, to go for any one certification which you feel, but don't go for like to show someone, okay, I'm certified. That is what my take. Okay, even if I see Ajit, right? Ajit is being from long and he's running lot. I don't know like how much certification Ajit has right now. If I can see that Ajit.
So the last certification I had was for VMware, and after that I
Yeah.
didn't have.
So Ajit, I think that was 10 years back, right? Even I have done that, and that was like 2011. I did in 2010. Okay, so that was in 10 years back. That was also like, yeah, because we were in VMware and we want to know about that. Your Ajit was that, so we learned that. After that, whatever I am learning, that is all hands-on learning. Even if I take Apurva, right? Apurva has, I think, couple of certification from CCAT, right? Apurva, because he's very passionate about Kubernetes. I can see his career build around that area, but he has not done other certification, if I'm not wrong. Apurva, you want to answer that?
Yeah, true that. Yeah, whenever I'm appearing for any interviews, first of all, interview will ask me like, why do you have like lots of certification in your career or something like that. So it is not the case like I want to give this exam. This is only the things like I want to check my abilities, what I have done, and how much I have experience in this case. So the basic things only I need to check my abilities. That's it. Nothing apart from else. Like I have to do this certification and I will get the job. If I'm appearing for any interview, they didn't ask me whether you are Kubernetes certified or not. That doesn't matter at all. If I look back to my previous certifications, like I have like RHC and RHCSA. That was like again the same things what I had done. Like the only thing is whether I can crack the exam or not, if I am having that much of knowledge or not.
Yeah, so I think the single line what you can, don't run around certification. If you are really willing,
Yes,
or you
right.
want to really want to build career, then go for certification, because it requires like you need to spend some money and you need to have good knowledge. Don't go for dumps. Okay,
Yeah,
it make you dumb, because that means the dumps means. Okay,
yeah,
try
true
to
the things. So if I ask you like, if you ask me like AWS certification, so people will go and take the dumps and write the exams.
yeah.
So if I'm appearing for the any interview, and suppose I have cracked the interview, and before cracking the interview, somebody asks me like, why don't you have like AWS or GCP certification? If you are working since more than 4 years or 5 years, so I will simply say like, I have the experience, I have the knowledge, I have hands-on experience, and if you want to do me the certification, definitely I will do once I crack the interview, and
Yeah,
definitely people will
so
agree on this. If I am
correct.
able to crack the interview, that means I have hands-on and the knowledge on the uh, particular technology.
Yeah, right. So even it's same with me, what I said, right? So you can't have certification because in the cloud right now, there are multiple vendors. You name one, they have all have cloud. You can't be certified in all. So better to learn, do hands-on. That's all I would say, right? So to answer that, yeah, this is what our experience says. But with all due respect, like you can go for certification, there is no harm. But it's your, like, you have to use your mind. That's all. Whatever you
Yeah,
feel good, go for it. But
yeah. But before appearing for any certification, I will suggest you that go deep into the technology, go for the hands-on, do explore the things, and then appear for the certification. Don't just go blindly and appear for the exams, because whenever I'm just uh, so a lot of people are asking me like, I want to crack the CK or CKID just for the namesake, and I want to get the job into the Kubernetes or microservices field. That is not the correct way, because a lot of people appeared for the CK or 2 or 3 times, and they got failed. The reasoning is being that they are not much knowledge or hands-on around it, and they didn't explore those things.
yeah, so I think, yeah, that's all we want to say around this question around. I think, yeah, we are on time right now. I can see like we have covered all the required areas which we want to cover about DevOps. And so if anyone has like any other question right now, they can drop on Slack. We have Collabnix Slack, or you can reach out Ajit, me, Apurva personally. Also, we have our LinkedIn or anywhere, any social means, and feel free to drop. Okay.